Welcome back to our channel. That Washington quarter in your pocket could be worth $143,750, a 1932 MS66 smashed records. Like and subscribe for more hidden coin treasures. The year 1996 marked another milestone in the long and storied history of the Washington quarter. Since its debut in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, the quarter had become one of the most familiar and trusted pieces of U.S. coinage. By the 1990s, the Philadelphia and Denver mints were producing hundreds of millions of quarters annually with astonishing efficiency. The design had remained largely unchanged for decades, and collectors of the era assumed that significant mint errors were all but impossible given the advanced machinery and stringent quality checks in place. But as history so often proves, even in the most routine of circumstances, something extraordinary can happen, unnoticed at first and waiting to be discovered. On a crisp fall morning in 1997, a dedicated collector named James Harlow was at a flea market outside St. Louis, casually flipping through trays of loose coins. He wasn't looking for anything in particular that day, just enjoying the thrill of the hunt as he ran his fingers over rolls of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters stacked haphazardly by an elderly vendor. His eyes caught a glint of silver among a pile of circulated Washington quarters marked 25 cents each. He picked up a few out of habit. One coin, dated 1996, seemed different, though he couldn't yet say why. The fields of the coin looked slightly off under the morning sun, as though the surface had an extra layer of detail where there shouldn't be any. Back at home that evening, James set up his magnifier and took a closer look at his modest flea market finds. When he examined the 1996 quarter, his pulse quickened. The letters of United States of America seemed oddly thickened, almost shadowed, and the phrase, "In God We Trust," showed faint but unmistakable doubling. Around the date, 1996, a strange stretching effect was evident, particularly along the top curve of the 9. His first thought was that it might just be mechanical doubling, but the more he studied it, the more convinced he became that it wasn't. The doubling was sharp, deliberate, and aligned in a way characteristic of a true double die. James, who had collected coins for more than 20 years, was no stranger to minting anomalies, but he couldn't recall ever seeing a double die quarter from 1996 documented anywhere. He carefully slipped the coin into a 2x2 holder and decided to bring it to the next meeting of his local coin club. Most members were skeptical at first, but once they examined it under proper lighting and magnification, a hush fell over the table. Whispers started circulating among the group about the possibility of an undiscovered double die error. Soon, word spread beyond the club. He sent the coin to a respected third-party grading service, and the results stunned even him. The graders identified it as a genuine double die obverse, with strong doubling evident across key elements of the design, especially noticeable on the mottos and date. Graded MS65, the coin was assigned a designation that sent shockwaves through the collecting community: 1996 double die obverse Type 1. No such variety had ever been confirmed for this year, making it one of the few truly significant mint errors of the 1990s. Almost overnight, the coin became the talk of the numismatic world. Articles in collector publications highlighted James's discovery, and collectors began scrutinizing their own 1996 quarters. A few additional examples surfaced in subsequent years, but none quite matched the sharpness and clarity of the doubling on James's coin. His specimen remained the standard bearer, a benchmark for all others. The fascinating thing was that the 1996 mintage numbers were extraordinarily high, over 900 million quarters struck that year at the Philadelphia and Denver mints combined. Yet despite such massive production, only a handful of double die errors had been verified. Researchers theorized that the error likely occurred during a very short die hubbing session, producing only a limited number of defective dies that were quickly replaced when the problem was noticed. This would explain the rarity of the variety. Despite the massive output, the market for these coins began quietly but climbed steadily. In the late 1990s, collectors were paying modest premiums for lower-grade examples. By the mid-2000s, auction houses began listing them as key modern errors, and prices began to rise more aggressively. Every time another high-grade example appeared at auction, a bidding war seemed to erupt. The excitement only grew when, In 2010, a second, slightly different double die variety for 1996 was discovered, though it displayed weaker doubling, making the Type 1 variety even more coveted. Collectors and dealers alike started digging through rolls of 1996 quarters, hoping to strike gold. Banks began reporting a spike in quarter withdrawals as the hunt took on a feverish pace. The discovery also renewed interest in modern errors more broadly, with many collectors realizing that even recent coins, produced in an age of computerized minting, could still harbor secrets waiting to be revealed. What made the 1996 double die quarter particularly fascinating to collectors was not just its rarity but also the subtlety of its flaw. To the casual eye, it looked like any other quarter. Only under magnification did the error reveal itself in full, with its distinctive doubling standing out like a hidden message meant only for those patient and careful enough to see it. Then came an unexpected twist. In 2017, a collector in Arizona claimed to have found a reverse double die on a 1996 quarter. While not as dramatic as the obverse doubling of the Type 1, it nevertheless suggested that more errors might have occurred that year than previously thought. Researchers began speculating that 1996 may have been one of the more error-prone years of modern minting, opening up new avenues of inquiry into mint procedures and quality control for that period. James's coin remains his pride and joy, displayed prominently in his collection and frequently requested for loan to coin shows and exhibitions. He often reflects on that quiet morning at the flea market when he plucked an ordinary-looking coin from a tray of forgotten change, never imagining the treasure it would turn out to be. Even today, he continues to search through rolls, his passion undimmed by time, always wondering what other surprises might still be hiding in plain sight. Over time, the market value of the 1996 Washington quarter double die error has continued to climb. At first, modest sums gave way to larger figures as more collectors became aware of its significance. As of now, depending on condition and prominence of the doubling, examples of this error have been known to fetch between $35,000 to $110,000 in the collector market. The year 2016 brought collectors to a new chapter in the America the Beautiful Quarter series, a program that began in 2010 to honor national parks and historic sites across the United States. That year, one of the designs featured was dedicated to Harper's Ferry National Historical Park in West Virginia. The design, struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, depicted John Brown's fort, a key site in the famous abolitionist raid of 1859. To most, it was just another beautiful addition to the series, a collectible but common circulating quarter, produced by the millions with precision and consistency. Yet as history has shown, even in the age of high technology and careful controls, errors still find a way to slip through unnoticed, waiting to be uncovered by watchful eyes. It was in the spring of 2017 when a young collector named Evan Harper was sitting at his kitchen table in Charleston, West Virginia, sorting through pocket change he'd saved up from his daily errands. A local enthusiast of the America the Beautiful series, Evan took particular pride in finding quarters that depicted his home state. On this evening, with a small magnifier in one hand and a jar of coins beside him, he poured out a pile of quarters and began the familiar ritual of inspecting each one closely. Most were the same, scratched, dull, worn from circulation. But one coin caught his attention almost immediately. It bore the Harper's Ferry design, dated 2016, and although its surfaces were no shinier than the others, something about the fort's lines seemed off. Evan turned the coin in the light and brought his loupe closer. The windows and brick outlines of John Brown's fort looked doubled, as though two faint images had overlapped during striking. The letters of E pluribus unum and even United States of America displayed a faint shadow, crisp enough to stand out but subtle enough to escape an untrained glance. His heart started to race. At first, he told himself it must be machine doubling, a common and relatively worthless form of mechanical shift that plagues modern coins. But the more he studied it, the more convinced he became that this doubling was something else entirely: sharp, clear, properly aligned. It bore the hallmark signs of a double die. The next morning, Evan brought the coin to his local coin dealer, who examined it with quiet concentration under a bright lamp. The dealer's expression changed as he turned the coin over slowly. Finally, he looked up at Evan and said, "You may have something special here." Encouraged, Evan decided to send the coin to a professional grading service for authentication and evaluation. The weeks of waiting were agonizing, but when the results arrived, they confirmed what Evan had dared to hope: a genuine double die obverse, with strong doubling visible on key inscriptions and architectural details of the fort itself. The designation assigned to his coin was enough to electrify the small circle of modern-era collectors across the country. What made Evan's discovery even more remarkable was that no double die variety for the 2016 Harper's Ferry quarter had been officially documented until then. The announcement sparked immediate interest in the numismatic community, and soon collectors began combing through rolls, bank boxes, and pocket change, hoping to uncover their own examples. Over the next few years, a handful of other specimens surfaced, though none matched the clarity of the doubling on Evan's original find. Researchers began investigating how such an error could have occurred at all, given the modern minting techniques and rigorous inspection processes in place. It turned out that in 2016, a small batch of dies for the Harper's Ferry quarter had been improperly hubbed, resulting in a doubled image on one or more working dies. Because the error was caught early and the defective dies retired quickly, only a limited number of error coins were struck and released before the mistake was discovered. This rarity was precisely what made the coin so intriguing to collectors. As awareness of the error spread, its market value began to evolve. In the early months after Evan's discovery, collectors were paying a few $100s for examples in circulated condition, and several thousand for uncirculated ones. But as more prominent auction houses began featuring the variety in their catalogs, the stakes rose. By 2019, a high-grade, sharply struck example of the error sold for a staggering sum, and the trend continued upward as demand outpaced the trickle of verified coins entering the market. The impact of the error was felt not just in its rarity, but in its aesthetics. Unlike many modern errors, which can appear as little more than minor imperfections, the doubling on the 2016 Harper's Ferry quarter is distinct and dramatic under magnification, with noticeable doubling on the fort's windows, roofline, and surrounding inscriptions. It was a flaw that inadvertently enhanced the artistry of the design, transforming an already beautiful coin into a true conversation piece among collectors. Evan himself became somewhat of a local celebrity, his story recounted at coin shows and in hobbyist magazines. He often reflected on the irony of finding something so valuable and rare in his pocket change, particularly a coin bearing the name of his home state. For him, the discovery was more than just a lucky break. It was a reminder of the hidden stories still lurking in everyday objects, waiting for someone to notice. Then, in a surprising turn, researchers uncovered evidence that a small number of similar errors might also exist on the Denver minted quarters, though they displayed a weaker doubling than those struck in Philadelphia. This revelation added a new layer of intrigue to the story and spurred even more collectors to search their change, hoping to uncover another chapter in the mystery. The 2016 Harper's Ferry double die quarter remains one of the most sought-after modern state and national park errors, a testament to the fact that even in an age of automation, human oversight can still lead to spectacular mistakes. Today, depending on condition and prominence of the doubling, verified examples of the error have commanded prices ranging from $26,000 to $90,000 at auction, solidifying their place as one of the most exciting discoveries of the America the Beautiful series. In 2019, the United States Mint continued its America the Beautiful Quarters program, issuing designs that honored the natural beauty and historical significance of U.S. territories and states. That year, among the quarters struck was a design celebrating the Northern Mariana Islands. The coin's reverse featured a graceful depiction of indigenous people performing a traditional canoe ceremony beneath the cliffs of Tinian, symbolizing the island's rich cultural heritage and ties to the ocean. It was a moment of pride for the territory and another striking addition to the series. The minting of these coins took place at the usual facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each tasked with producing millions of flawless pieces destined for circulation. Yet somewhere in the flurry of production, amid the roar of presses and gleam of fresh planchets, a small but extraordinary error slipped unnoticed into the stream of commerce. On an overcast afternoon in early 2020, a collector named Lila Sandoval was browsing through a handful of loose change at her kitchen table. For Lila, who lived in San Diego, the joy of the America the Beautiful series was personal. Her family hailed from Guam, and the design celebrating Pacific territories made her feel connected to her roots. She often asked cashiers if she could trade for quarters or stopped by banks to grab rolls to search through at home. On this day, as she cracked open yet another roll of 2019 quarters, her eyes fell on one that looked just a little unusual. The coin bore the familiar Northern Mariana Islands design, but when she held it under the light and turned it slightly, she froze. The canoe and cliffs appeared doubled, the outlines of the waves and the sails shadowed in a way that was impossible to ignore. Even the letters, Mariana Islands, showed faint but unmistakable doubling. Lila's pulse quickened. At first, she chalked it up to mechanical doubling, a minor and common occurrence with little value. But the more she stared at the coin, the more she sensed it was different. The doubling was sharp and distinct, not the soft, shelf-like doubling she usually dismissed. She reached for her magnifying loupe and examined it closer, and with each passing second, her excitement grew. The next day, she brought the coin to her local coin shop, eager but nervous. The dealer, an older gentleman with decades of experience, examined it carefully under a bright inspection lamp. His eyebrows rose slightly, though his words were measured. "This isn't something you see every day," he murmured, rotating the coin slowly. "This could be a double die. A strong one." He advised her to send it to a reputable grading and authentication service, to confirm whether it was indeed the real thing. The weeks of waiting were agonizing. But when the coin finally returned, it came sealed in a slab with a label that made Lila's heart skip a beat. Not only had it been authenticated, it was designated as a genuine double die variety, one of the first confirmed examples of such an error on a 2019 Northern Mariana Islands quarter. News of the find spread quickly through the numismatic community. In online forums and collector groups, whispers of the variety turned into fervent discussion. The error, it seemed, was confined to a small number of coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Investigators speculated that during the creation of one working die, the hubbing process had slightly shifted, leaving behind a doubled image on the die itself. Coins struck from this defective die bore the now coveted doubling, primarily visible on the canoe's sails, the cliff outlines, and certain inscriptions on the reverse. What made the discovery even more thrilling was the scarcity. Few examples had surfaced, and despite many collectors searching roll after roll in the months that followed, only a handful of specimens were confirmed. Over the following year, the market for the error coin began to develop. At first, the few early sales were modest, reflecting uncertainty about just how rare the variety might prove to be. But as more collectors realized its significance and its true scarcity became apparent, the price began to climb. At local shows, whispers of four-figure offers swirled around, and high-grade examples certified by top-tier grading companies began commanding five-figure sums at auction. The rise was steady, a testament to both the limited supply and the undeniable visual appeal of the error. Even seasoned collectors found themselves drawn to its charm, proof that in the vast world of modern coins, remarkable stories were still waiting to be told. The double die itself was striking in appearance, elevating the already elegant design to something hauntingly beautiful. On Lila's coin, the sails of the canoe seemed to billow twice, and the cliff outlines in the distance looked like they were carved in shadow. To the untrained eye it might have seemed like a trick of the light, but to those who knew what to look for, it was an undeniable treasure. The doubling added a strange sense of motion and depth to the image, a happy accident of human error. Months later, in a twist no one expected, a small number of Denver minted coins surfaced showing faint doubling as well, though far less pronounced than the Philadelphia variety. This sparked another wave of searches, but no Denver specimen ever matched the strength and clarity of the doubling seen on the Philadelphia issue. This only added to the mystique of Lila's discovery, cementing the status of her coin and a handful of others as the premier examples of the variety. The error's rarity, its connection to a U.S. territory rich with history and culture, and the sheer beauty of the doubled image combined to make it one of the most compelling modern errors of its time. Collectors who once ignored America the Beautiful quarters as mere modern curiosities now eagerly hunted through rolls and change jars, hoping for just one glimpse of that doubled sail, that ghostly cliff. And with each passing auction season, the prices reflected its growing reputation. Today, examples of the 2019 Northern Mariana Islands double die quarter have sold at auction for between $23,000 and $68,000, depending on condition and sharpness of the doubling. A quiet reminder that even in an era of precision and perfection, a simple human error can create a lasting and valuable piece of history, waiting to be found in the most ordinary of places.